Hiya, fans. It's Brad coming to you once again from the city of Vienna, where I am spending one more day and I will be doing one more talk here this evening. And information is at hardcorezen.info/events, and I'll be putting the list of things at the end of this video, but you can just go right over to that page and find it as well. And tomorrow I will be on my way to Prague in the Czech Republic. I'm going to look for some prog rock while I'm there. Actually, it's true that in Eastern Europe there's a big sort of interest in progressive rock, and I'm hoping to score some records there if I can find the record stores in the Czech Republic in Prague. So, I'm making this video because I received two questions which I found quite similar recently. One of them came at the first talk that I gave here in Vienna 2 nights ago, and the other one came from the emails that you folks send me. And they were both more or less variations on the same question of, can we mix practices? I think one person was interested in maybe Christian mysticism and Kabbalah and stuff. I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong. My memory is kind of a little hazy on what I read in the emails. And the other was from a person at the talk in Vienna who had practiced some other things like Tibetan Buddhism and Vipassana, and was asking about the phenomenon of mixing these practices, which is a sort of a modern thing that happens. I'll first, before we start and go further, I want to read what Dogen said about the matter. So here is Dogen. This comes from Bendoa, which is a talk on pursuing the truth, is usually how it's translated. It appears in the first volume of the Nishijima Cross translation of Shobogenzo, and it appears first in most translations of Shobogenzo. And Bendoa is kind of a Q&A session where Dogen gives a bunch of questions that he probably received from people and answers them. So, the question is, someone asks, is there nothing to prevent a person who practices this zazen from also performing mantra and quiet reflection practices? And Dogen's answer is, I say, when I was in China, I heard the true essence of the teachings from a true master. He said that he had never heard that any of the patriarchs who received the authentic transmission of the Buddha seal ever performed such practices additionally, in the western heavens or in the eastern lands, in the past or in the present. Certainly, unless we devote ourselves to one thing, we will not attain complete wisdom. And in my book, Don't Be a Jerk, I tackled this one, and I made my version of this question from reading several other different variations on that translation that I just read to you. So, and I'm trying to modernize it a little bit and make it kind of contemporary. And it's FAQ number 12 in my version. Does it mess up your zazen practice if you also practice other stuff like chanting mantras or doing vipassana, analytical introspection? Now, I put vipassana in there specifically because that's what he says in the original. I forget exactly the Japanese word he's using, but it is a translation of vipassana, and vipassana is a very big thing these days with the kids who are into Buddhism. And here's my version of Dogen's response. My teachers in China told me they had never heard of any authentic master combining those kinds of practices with zazen. Unless you completely devote yourself to one practice, you'll never really master it. And that was kind of my take on that. So we live in a world in which all of these Buddhisms are mixing together and meeting each other, and also a world where various other religions are meeting each other. And in the past, because human societies, individual societies throughout the world were so isolated, they didn't meet each other. The various forms of Buddhism that existed alongside each other in terms of time hardly ever met each other, very rarely. And of course, Christianity, I don't think Dogen ever heard of Christianity or Judaism or Islam and other religions that existed in far-flung parts of the world, so there was no way for these practices to mix. But by Dogen's time, we already had various kinds of Buddhisms kind of interacting with each other. So Dogen was 800 years ago, and it's just the very beginnings of that starting to happen in the world. And Dogen is saying, no, don't mix your practices, devote yourself to one thing and do that all the way. And that, for for whatever it's worth to give you my trajectory in life, that's what I did. I found Zazen early on in life and I stuck with it. And I think that's the best way to do it. It's not that it's evil or, some bad thing is going to happen or the devil is going to get you if you mix your practices or if you do something other than pure zazen. There's no kind of idea of that at least within the Zen Buddhist milieu, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's best to do one thing and get it right. And if you kind of scatter your energy into other areas, the chances are that you're going to get a kind of a weak-kneed sort of practice going. The problem is the temptation when you try to mix practices is just to pick what you like out of each one. Now, that might not seem like a problem, but it is a kind of a problem because you're going to miss out on the things that challenge you. I think it was Shunryu Suzuki, or maybe it was Kobun Chino, I'm not sure which one, but there's a quote I can remember from one of those teachers that was something like, unless you feel challenged by a practice, it's not a true practice. Unless the practice is giving you something you need to overcome or something that is kind of against what you think you want to do, that's not a good practice. And what you get often when you try to mix different things is you're just taking all the things that don't challenge you and mixing them together into a nice comfortable stew that doesn't really put any, I don't know, doesn't put anything in your way. And you kind of need something to be put in your way in order to have the true experience. And that's why it is better to pick one path and then follow it all the way through. Now, of course, if you pick a teacher and then you find out that teacher is trash or he's doing bad things to you or whatever, that doesn't mean you have to stick with a bad thing when it's going. And I hope that's clear. But not to run away from things that are challenging that's the thing. Now, I remember the quote. Now I'll tell you the quote. It's something like, unless a practice feels like it's forcing itself upon you, it's not a true practice. And I wish I could remember who said it. I feel like it's Suzuki Roshi, and I feel like it might be in Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind, but I don't know for sure. So that's the reason I think it's good to stick with one practice and do it all the way and do it right. It's not because it's evil or you're going to get bad influences or, the devil's going to get you or something like that. But it's more that you want to kind of go all the way with one thing. If you want to be a great bass guitarist, then play bass guitar. And if you want to fiddle around on a ukulele or a fiddle or a guitar or something else, that's not going to hurt you. But if you want to do the one thing really well, you're going to have to devote yourself to that. So there's my answer there. Short answer, no. Long answers to short questions. I was telling them in Vienna that I want to put out a book called that. Here are the places I'm going to be next, and you can look at them all there. You can also go to hardcorezen.info/events for more information. As I always say, am getting paid for most of these events, but it's a little bit more than it takes to get to the next event. So I get paid a little bit more than it takes to get me to the next event, so I can take a little bit home. But I'm still mostly dependent on your donations through Patreon and PayPal to keep going, and I hate reminding you of that at the end of each video, but I gotta, because that's how I get paid. So you're the guys who pay me. Thanks a lot for paying me. I'll try to keep uploading content as I travel, and we'll see you next time. Bye.